Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co.
I'm Professor Meg.
And today we're having a conversation about Gloomhaven.
Gloomhaven.
More specifically, what are we doing, Meg?
Honestly, I'm not sure. Which discussion are we doing?
Oh, we're having multiple discussions. This one is about Gloomhaven digital versus physical.
Okay.
We have a few videos about this stuff.
Yes.
We've been playing a lot of Gloomhaven, which is a good time to plug Camp Co-op. You can go ahead and watch us over on Twitch. There's a link down below in the description. Camp Co-op
Twitch.tv/camp_co-op.
That's the one. And and we'll have stuff, YouTube and things. We'll figure things out. Either way, point is we play a lot of Gloomhaven. That's the context here. This is not Gloomhaven. This is Gloomhaven. It's behind us in the scene, and this one's easier to take off the shelf. This is Crimson Scales, the fan-made expansion for Gloomhaven. That's actually a relevant part of this conversation today, which we will talk about. But small relevant conversation.
Yes.
This is too much in the way. We're gonna put this down over here. We got it back. Gloomhaven. Gloomhaven is the #1 game of all time. Gloomhaven. The #1 game of all time over on Board Game Geek. The highest ranked game, not the highest rated game, the highest ranked game on Board Game Geek, holding the #1 spot for closing a little just over 5 years. In fact, I have a video coming up shortly.
Wow, no, don't say that. That's true, but don't say it.
Why not?
I don't know, it makes me feel old.
It's a big deal. Do you know that Gloomhaven, I have a video coming up shortly, titled, which is ironic because timelines and things, but I have a video titled Why No Game Will Beat Gloomhaven as the #1 game. And it talks about ratings, it talks about rankings, it talks about how Gloomhaven got to be Gloomhaven. I don't know when that video goes up. I don't know when this video goes up. So the timeline is what it is. But part of the conversation about the 5-year part that's relevant is the longest game that has been a Board Game Geek top whatever is around 5 years. Gloomhaven is about to be not just #1 game, but the longest running #1 game, which is a big deal. Yeah. And we're having a conversation today about the nature of the digital implementation over on Steam, not TTS, none of those things. The digital implementation over on Steam versus the physical implementation. For context, the digital implementation is available on Steam. It's available on Epic Games as well, I believe. They just recently did it. So you can get that for like $30. You can buy Jaws of the Lion for like another $15, $20, whatever they are. They're frequently on sale. You can go ahead and hit your wish list, get notifications, all those fun things. But the digital implementation is a very well done version of the game that is very graphically rendered, runs the game for you while you have to still make the decisions in it. And the question and conversation today over here is preference of digital versus physical, whys, the pros and the cons, all of those things.
I'm excited.
That's where we are. There's no format here. There's no scripted. There's no bullet points. I got nothing. All I got over here is starting off the baseline, Meg. I'm trying to think whether I want to start. Let's start with opinions. Let's start with opinions. I was debating whether opinions or points. What do you prefer, Gloomhaven digital or physical?
Physical, absolutely. I'm the Hermione of our group. I have multiple checklists. I have notes. Not our group.
No. I just mean we're gonna get to the points soon. I'm gonna get to the why in a second.
Okay. I love the physical one.
I prefer digital. I vastly prefer digital. I have reasons why the physical is better, but I vastly...
We will save them for later in the video.
Timestamps down below to any section you want to jump to. I am a huge proponent of Gloomhaven to the point, I don't even think Meg knows this part. Once upon a time, Meg, in a timeline that you are actually aware of, a timeline that involves Tidal Blades, Heroes of the Reef, I played Tidal Blades, Heroes of the Reef, and I was about to get rid of... Heroes of the Reef? No, wait. Tidal Blades, Rise of the Enfolders. Yes. I played Tidal Blades, Rise of the Enfolders, the dungeon crawling game from Skype Entertainment, and I was going to get rid of Gloomhaven after playing that game. I almost got rid of Gloomhaven.
Yikes.
Okay.
I mean, and you still also don't need it because you prefer the digital version.
Sure, but if I love a game enough, I'm definitely keeping the physical version too.
Okay.
But I almost got rid of Gloomhaven, and that's part of the conversation we're going to have today. I prefer digital, you prefer physical. Let's get into the hows and whys. Let's go back and forth and just random things. We're just going to go into it. Why do you prefer the physical?
I love touching things. I love board games. I love playing them. You guys can see this is my game room. I play digital over in my office, at my computer, and I love the player interaction, getting to talk to someone. It's great that we play through Discord and get to talk, but being able to play with someone there is a lot of fun. I also, something that we may get to is, well, we will. Let's get to it now. You can make mistakes in the digital version that you can't really undo. And there's plenty of things that you can do in the physical version that if you forget to pull the element token off the token board, like you can just do it later. You say you're doing the attack, use the element, and then pull it off. But if you don't do the sequence perfectly in digital, that doesn't happen.
Meaning, in other words, intent is not properly conveyed in the digital format, and because of the nature of undos and how they can be manipulated and abused, there's no undos for many of these things. So sometimes you do the thing, you obviously meant to do X, Y, and Z along with the thing, but because you forgot to hit the right buttons, you now just wasted a turn.
Yeah, like for example, if I have move 4 and there are traps in the way, but I can still move forward to where I want to go without hitting a trap, I could just do that physically and go from here to there. In the digital version, if you accidentally click and you happen to walk over it, you have to reset to be able to fix that mistake.
Yeah, that's why we actually have a running joke in our Discord about the reset counter, which is the number of times during a night which we actually have to go ahead and reset the entire room, which you might argue is a solution, and it is a solution. It lets you solve many of these things, but it's not a perfect solution. It comes with a degree of sometimes learning information, and often it's just messy and
you can't always do it. If it's you have to do it during your turn. If it's your final action, you can't go back.
Yep.
And silly things like I've hit skip attack sometimes for no reason, and if you just click something too quickly, it's gone.
Yeah, and you might actually redo the whole room. It's not like you can redo an action. You can't just be like, oh, obviously I meant to attack.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I actually agree with you. That is definitely a strike against Gloomhaven. Now, I think before I get to my first point, the one thing I probably should mention, because I think it's very relevant to the conversation, is how do you feel about digital games in general?
I used to play a lot more video games than I used to. I don't play really any digital board games. So I used to play things like Zelda, and I still do a bit. I have a Nintendo Switch. I love my Animal Crossing. But for digital board games, it's only when we have to. So obviously we're in different states. So when we're playing games, or if I'm playing games with friends that aren't here, I'll play in Tabletopia, Board Game Arena, but I don't often play board games for fun on the computer.
Yeah, and for myself, in terms of, I think I feel similarly about that, which is I am totally on board with the benefits that digital brings to the table, including things like playing with friends and stuff like that, but I rarely play digitally except to play with friends. I just find that the friend benefit is the main reason, and otherwise I'd rather play even solo sometimes over digital. In terms of app-based games, I am fine with some app-based games, but it's not my go-to. So just I think the context in the background is relevant as we talk about specifically Gloomhaven. My biggest thing, and we're going to have points back and forth here, my biggest thing at the end of the day is Gloomhaven is a beast to set up. It is a beast to set up, Meg. It is a game that I sat there and I played the game. I got the game 3.5. I got the game like 4 years ago. I got it basically a year after it became the number one. I was like, let's just hold our horses and see if it actually is popular enough. It held the number one spot for long enough. I was like, I'm going to try this game. I got it roughly a year after it became the number one game on Board Game Geek. I sat down, I played it like 2 or 3 times. I was like, I like this game. I will get to it later. And then 4 years went by before I touched it again. Now, I did play Jaws of the Lion. That's a different conversation. I did play Jaws of the Lion a little bit. I got into that. I found that much more accessible. But Gloomhaven, the giant box, that is Gloomhaven, which isn't this, but it's this one giant behind us, and it's very, very large and very big and very heavy and a lot of things to pull out. At the end of the day, when I want to play Gloomhaven digital, I go ahead, I go to Steam, I click launch game, everything's there. When I'm done, I just hit X, everything's gone. If I lose a scenario, I want to replay the scenario, I just hit restart scenario, everything's done. Gloomhaven Physical is such a barrier to actually getting played that it's almost shocking to me that it is the number one game of all time, just given how much work goes into tabling the experience.
So I'm happy you brought that up, because there's a few points about that. I agree completely. It's definitely much more accessible, especially if you're someone who has a lot of younger children or a very busy job. It definitely makes it a lot more accessible. That being said, I love setting up. I love the ritual of it. For me, I would prep for multiple scenarios at a time, so I would see what we have unlocked and pre-pull any tiles that I could, and the enemies. I love setting it up. It's something that I enjoy doing, and it's almost as good for me as playing the actual game. But that being said, I wanted to bring up the point that I play completely physically, so I play with everything. I do all the monsters and all of that, but there are assisted apps. So there are things that, actually, I do use Foreteller. Foreteller will read all the narrations for you. It'll also check your progress and tell you the rewards at the end of the scenario. So there's that, and then there's also different helper apps that you can use. So there's Gloomhaven
Helper, although I don't know if, can you even download that anymore? I don't think you can download it. Gloomhaven Helper was a very popular help app for Gloomhaven that was available for a long time. I believe recently they no longer are updating it or downloading it. I think if you have it, you have it. If you don't, you don't. But I do believe there are, I think it's public. It's public.
I was going to say, there are things that I'm not going to say because I'm not sure.
Lucky Duck Games is publishing the Gloomhaven app. I'm 99% certain, otherwise I'll edit this and you'll hear a bleep as to the who. Yeah, you'll hear that if I'm wrong. But I'm 99% sure it's a public statement that Lucky Duck is working together with Gloomhaven to publish their next iteration of the app. So they're taking over the app development. There are lots of apps to help with that. Now, you even prefer not to use them, you're saying.
Right. Yeah. So that is like a midway thing if you'd like that. But I love running it all.
Point number 2 for why you prefer physical? What, there's something you like about physical or dislike about digital? I can take point number 2 first.
Goodness. Something that I'll say about digital that we can pick on because it just recently happened is that you can get kicked out. There's different things with the app being able to run that sometimes it's computer-based, that we've had different computer issues or internet issues, but there were a few times where Steam wasn't working correctly and we weren't able to play.
Or even times where we're picking up our campaign and because of the rules of how things are, like, I have to get to a next point before I can, like, invite you to join.
Right, yeah. So that's definitely something that's frustrating, especially where we regularly play, where depending on the pace of how you play Gloomhaven and if you play with other people, obviously physical is just much more accessible that you can play at any time, regardless of electricity or internet or any of that.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think it's fair critique. For me, I'm going to go with one that's more a pro, but also a little bit of a con. But I consider this a strong pro with caveats. You don't have to know the 80 pages of rules in and out to play Gloomhaven Digital. Mm-hmm. You do have to know the rules. You still have to know the rules. You still have to know the sequencing. You have to understand what you're doing. You're playing the top half of this card, the bottom of that card, the initiative order. You have to understand what's happening or you'll die just a lot. You can click the buttons. You can click all the buttons you want and do the wrong things, but if you don't understand what's going on, it's going to be hard for you. Mm-hmm. But past that, the game manages the rest. The game manages the summons, where they move, how they move. You want to understand why, so you can do the next thing. The game manages line of sight. You can always hit certain buttons that'll show you line of sight, but you don't have to recheck a page 47 in the rulebook to find the line of sight rules. You can just hit a little button and it says, oh yeah, that's how that's line of sight. A game runs most of the things for you in a way that keeps the game running, so you have to know the framework of Gloomhaven, but you don't have to know it to the point where you, again, have to read a ton of rules and understand everything. You kind of have to know the high level. I can get somebody up and running on Gloomhaven Digital in probably like 5-10 minutes, and they're good to go. Mm-hmm. The things will happen. Once in a while you won't understand something, but for the most part you'll be good to go. The slight con, which is attached to this pro, is the fact that if you're not going to take the 10 minutes or the 20 minutes to actually learn what you're doing, it is also easy to just be frustrated by the experience because you're just clicking things and the game will let you do stuff while you're not... Like, you might just click cards to play and then be confused why the enemy's going before you. That can happen. Right. So you have to be willing to at least put in the legwork a bit. But if you're not just treating it like an app that you're popping open, hoping everything will just happen for you and you'll be guided, walked, whatever, as long as you're putting in the legwork a drop, I think that the rules barrier is another barrier that is significantly removed. Gloomhaven is like a 70-page rulebook. Yeah. It's intense. It's a lot of stuff, and some of those things you don't even need to touch upon until who knows now. Like things like, upgrading your cards with the stickers, like, you don't even need to touch upon that until whenever. So, or recording your death and the town chronicles and all these things. There's a lot there, and it's not structured in a way. It's like, hey, by the way, stop with the rules now and go play and come back to this when relevant. The Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion did a significantly better job, but they also cut out portions of how the game plays in order to do so. So, compromises. The app gives you it all. It gives you the accessibility of Jaws of the Lion while maintaining the full, in-depth Gloomhaven experience.
I think that's a really strong point. I'll give it to you because I learned Gloomhaven first. You hadn't played a ton of Gloomhaven, so you didn't have to be as deep into it. But I played through the entire campaign and all of Jaws of the Lion before we started digital. And to that point, I was learning rules that we had missed all the time. I shouldn't say all the time, but I kept learning things that we had missed. And in Jaws of the Lion, I learned something that we had never picked up on. And even when we play digital now...
Line of sight rules.
And healing, where if you heal, you can heal poison off, but you don't heal any damage, but for wounded, you heal both. Yeah. And I didn't know that. I always thought it was if you have a condition on you, you only heal the condition.
Yeah, so there's that aspect. It's rules. And because how are you supposed to? It's a 70-page rulebook. Unless you're playing with other people who have played Gloomhaven again and again and again, it is easy to miss a single thing. And then either you're reading the rulebook or you're playing with others, and at some point one day you find out that the rule's wrong.
And I think it's also easy to use other games and think that you know how something will work, like advantage and disadvantage. I was playing that wrong in the beginning. We learned that during Gloomhaven, the physical copy, so we did fix it not pretty quickly, but a bit into it.
Or the burning of cards, you thought you could do it.
That was in Jaws of the Lion.
Yes, we had both this.
We didn't know until Jaws of the Lion that you could burn a card from your hand to negate damage.
No. Oh, that's not that.
Yeah, that was something we learned.
You played through the entire Gloomhaven?
We played through, I want to say maybe 80% of Gloomhaven, stopped, played Jaws of the Lion, and then finished Gloomhaven. And we played through the majority of Gloomhaven without knowing you could burn a card to negate damage.
So I wasn't referring to that one. I was referring to one that we both played wrong until playing digital, or maybe you learned it earlier, I don't know.
Maybe.
There's a rule which you can, when you short rest, you draw a card, and you can take a point of damage to draw a different one.
Yes.
I always thought you could do that as many times as you want, taking a point of damage again and again and again.
You can only do that once.
Only once. Yeah.
You can take 1 damage, and that's the most you can take for doing that, yeah.
So rules is my second thing. And I'll jump into my third. I don't know if you have more points. But my third, and I think final...
Well, I can throw in the miniatures. There's a point that I'll maybe make for digital later, but the miniature
That's my third point. My third point is what you're about to make with digital.
The miniatures are beautiful and they're so fun. I love having them. We have the Ring of Skulls where you can get a summons that's a skeleton. We have a D&D mini that we use for that. That having them all together on the board is really fun, and that I absolutely love the miniatures. But that being said,
Gloomhaven Digital has a degree of atmosphere, CGI, all these things going on, and in fact the standees for enemies are not standees. It has a lot of world building going on in it in the digital version that isn't in the tabletop version. Tabletop version has you picking tile 18 and putting this, and this on it. Gloomhaven Digital has that tile with lush, scenery and forests and plants and vines, and then in a different scenario that same tile might be used and it looks completely different because the only thing that matters is the shape. But the digital design is done completely differently. It adds an area of atmosphere. Your enemies are shambling and moving the entire time, and their tentacles just like shuffling in a way that gives you a degree of immersion into the world building of the experience that isn't present in the physical one.
Yeah, it'll even, where there are the tiles, there are the parts you can move on. The digital version adds even extra rooms behind it with, like, vines or, like, skeletons and windows. There's a lot extra. And that being said, that I've picked up on, the elite enemies are different. So instead of having, all the standees look the same in physical Gloomhaven, the elite enemies are different colors in this one. Like, for the oozes, they're usually green. In this version, the elite ones are purple. So they're a lot easier to pick up on to see what's an elite monster versus a regular monster. And I believe it's the living corpses as well. They look just so much scarier. The elite version is like a bit creepier. It has more things in it. So it's actually different art.
On the last point, at least myself, I'm going to touch upon a few aspects of physical that are pros, because for me, first of all, the one general we touched on it with the miniatures is just, at the end of the day, all the pros of digital aside, you are missing, and I still prefer digital, don't get me wrong, but you are missing the tactile aspect of a board game.
Yes.
At the end of the day, Gloomhaven Digital feels like the strategy of the board game, but is still a video game implementation. Versus it doesn't have that tactile aspect in front of you of everything, holding your cards, being able to look at your cards, being able to just look at everything. When you want to see something, you have to remember which button to click on your keyboard, as opposed to just looking at the thing. There's a reason I love board games, and some of those reasons are not present in digital Gloomhaven. And then lastly, just as a random shout out, but also real, is you can't play Crimson Scales on digital. So that's going to be a problem, which is going to force me. One of the reasons we talked about why do I have my Gloomhaven physical.
That's fair.
I mean, there's many reasons, and if I like a game as much as I do, I'm probably going to have it no matter what. But I plan on diving into Crimson Scales, and right now that's not digital. So fan mods do not support the digital experience.
That's absolutely fair.
And with that, final thoughts, final recaps, I guess. So overall, you prefer physical, but where are you
I want to jump in on the last thing too, because I have one more. Again, with the tactile part, there are things like on the map in physical Gloomhaven where you're adding stickers and you can see your achievements very clearly, and also with the town records. Those are the two things that I'm thinking of that in digital Gloomhaven I kind of miss. Like, we get to stop and read them, but it is, again, something that you have to go into and find and click, and you only have the screen. Whereas when you're playing, you can have everything spread out in front of you. You can see how many perk points you have. It's just, to me, a lot more fun. I love the stickers. They took away the stickers. Yeah, for me, final thoughts, I guess, on the whole back and forth of this is ultimately, we both like Gloomhaven. That's not the question. You love Gloomhaven. I love Gloomhaven too. Gloomhaven's a fantastic experience. I'm happy to play it physically, more so in Jaws of the Line. Jaws of the Line I find is easy to pull out and table and just get up and running. To me, the big box of Gloomhaven is a physical barrier of the amount of content that has to come out of the box to set up and table. I almost feel like there's no point doing it unless I'm prepared to play 4 or 5 scenarios at once. It's a box full of delight.
It is a box full of delight, but it's still a box full, which is the main problem for me. And at the end of the day, I enjoyed the experience enough that, especially when I have the additional incentive of stuff I can't otherwise do, like Crimson Scales, where I want to explore all the content, to me that's a good justification to be able to still experience the realm of the physical within the Gloomhaven universe while still enjoying the digital, which is my preferred go-to. I think Gloomhaven is a game that I always appreciated, but I was ready to get rid of it because of how much of a barrier it was to get further into the experience. And it did take me getting further into the experience to go from liking Gloomhaven a lot to loving Gloomhaven. Now I love Gloomhaven. I've gone through character matches, I've retired people, I've lost, I've felt, I've gotten through all these motions in the experience while enjoying the tactical experience, but I've done that because I went into it further, and in the physical version, I played it 3 times and then put it down for 4 years. So I'm happy both exist. I'll be diving into physical more, but for me, digital, at the end of the day, and I acknowledge all your points. I agree with every single one you gave, but for me, digital does win out.
Yeah, there's something for me that just sitting at the computer, using your mouse, having your headphones on, I think that I would maybe at most play 2 to 3 scenarios, whereas physical Gloomhaven is something that I could play an entire day of, where I feel like it's just a much more relaxed atmosphere. I have a thing with screens, so I don't want to be looking at them all the time. I love physical Gloomhaven. We say
as we talk to the camera screen.
It's a little screen.
It's a little one.
It's much littler. But I think that both are a great option. I think at the end of the day, physical is great, digital is great, so depending on how you normally play things, if you prefer a physical game in front of you with your friends across from the table, or if you prefer something that's easier to set up, that's a little bit better for your lifestyle, they're both fantastic options. It's a lovely game. It is so much fun. I say if either of those sound interesting to you, do it. Just dive right into it.
I forgot a final point.
Final point I would say is if you're interested in a Gloomhaven journey, the digital is a way to go that I would start with either Jaws of the Lion or Gloomhaven, but if you want to play the physical version, I suggest starting with Jaws of the Lion. One of the major differences that Alex kind of alluded to is that there are no tiles. Instead, you're playing in like a storybook type map where it's already set up for you. And just because it's less content, there are less monsters, it's easier to find the tiles and different monsters. And it's also a cheaper price point.
That's the point.
Yeah.
I got to the end, I was like, let's do the recommendation for if you want to dive into it. I was like,
you can go pick it up at Target tonight after watching this video.
Well, I just went to digital. I'm saying even just digital. Digital versus physical. Diving into Gloomhaven.
I think digital Gloomhaven might be the same price as physical Jaws of the Lion.
Yes, but that gives you have different price points. You can dive into Jaws of the Lion, which I think you need physical Gloomhaven for. I think you need digital Gloomhaven before digital Jaws of the Lion.
Maybe.
I think. Maybe. But either way, they're going to run you like around $20 for Jaws of the Lion, around $35 for like Gloomhaven digital, around $35 for Jaws of the Lion physical, and around anywhere from $80 to $120 for physical big box Gloomhaven. It's a fantastic experience. I do recommend, like you said, digital or Jaws of the Lion first as a dive-in.
Just to see if you like it.
We definitely recommend it. It's just a question of which one we like more.
Yeah.
In any case, until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co.
I'm Professor Meg.
And I hope you have a good one.
Bye.